It's the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham. Moments like right now in our world is when art becomes more than expression. It acts as a witness to history, to conflict, and to triumphs. And during times of conflict across parts of the Middle East, voices from those with deep cultural and personal ties to the region carry a particular weight, grounded in lived experience, memory, and identity. Wafaa Mustafa is an Iraqi American poet from Dearborn and a teaching artist working with Inside Out Literary Arts. She's also a mentor with the Arab American National Museum Teen Writing Fellowship. As an Arab American artist, her voice sits at the intersection of culture and history. It offers reflection in a time when many are searching for deeper understanding. Wafaa joins me now to talk about poetry, identity, and what it means to hold space for youth voices in this moment. Wafaa, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you're an Iraqi American poet. You're based in Dearborn. You're a Wayne State grad. So this is home. This is where your stomping ground.
Yeah.
How has your cultural background shaped your voice and your work?
Oh, it's everything. I've come to understand the English language through my understanding of Arabic.
Wow.
It is a root language. So for poetry, that means looking into the associations of words, what they mean, what other words are related to those meanings. For example, the word for poetry in Arabic is shar, and those root letters are also the same root letters for the word for feelings, masha'ar. And the verb form for I think is ash'ar. So thinking about thought and logic as being part and parcel to imagination, creativity, and feeling is very important to me, and it's something that I try to embed in my lessons as well.
Because I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but I would love to pick your brain about your studying of linguistics and how it has shaped your perspective around the world and the way that you move, because understanding language at a deeper level really does change the way that you move within the spaces that you're in. So, just thinking about you as a poet, as a creative, as an Arab American woman, how do you move through life with that understanding?
It keeps things open-ended, imagination, possibility. You never limit yourself, essentially. And it's something that I try to ingrain in the young ones because they're so easily imaginative. They have access to that space in their mind that is open-ended. And to teach in that way reminds me too, because adult life makes you forget.
It does.
So yeah.
Yes. So how has growing up in Dearborn and Metro Detroit shaped the way that you move through this world as well? And how do you translate it through poetry?
Dearborn is a special place.
It is.
I got to take my identity for granted because everyone around me is the same. And I really only felt uncomfortable leaving Dearborn, with the exception of Detroit. I think the possibility of Dearborn being a city with the highest number of Arab Americans in North America is only possible because it's adjacent to the blackest city in America. So it's shaped my understanding of community connection across different identities, and to not let identity, to not be so stuck in the rigidity of identity.
Yes, hearing you say that is something that I often talk about with friends and family, but growing up in a city that is a majority black city, just like for you, it's oftentimes you don't see yourself and your identity as not necessarily unique or I won't say the word unique, but you just don't see yourself outside of this certain space. And then when you leave, you're like, oh, okay, I see who I am now, especially for myself. Going to Michigan State, it really highlighted who I was and where I was from. So when did you first discover poetry as a form of self-expression, and what drew you in?
I think I've always been drawn to language. It was initially through philosophy. I don't read literature that much, but it was philosophy primarily. And I realized pretty quickly that in my reading philosophy, I was really searching for poetry, for like different diversions of thought, how else to think, how else to be. and it's now informed how I read and write and teach poetry. But it's always been a part of my life. There's a saying, I forget by who, that if you throw a rock in Iraq, it'll likely land on the head of a poet. So it's part of who I am, always been part of who I am.
I love that. We got to figure out who said that. I love that. And for yourself, as you've grown as a person, as you've grown within your own identity, is it important for you to include your own identity when you're writing? Is it something that is always included within your writing, or do you take a step back and separate yourself?
I can never separate my sense of self from myself, but I don't explicate my identity in my work, and that's probably due to the fact that I've been able to take it for granted, that I don't think about myself in context to how different I am from the rest of everything.
Yes. And moving towards you as a teacher, as a mentor, because you talked a little bit about it, just, trying to stick with the students and trying to keep up with them, actually, to young poets, especially as you try to diversify this landscape. What does it mean when other Iraqi American children or Arab American children and teens see you in action? Does it ever feel heavy?
Heavy? No, very light, very light. Because it increases my own belief in that possibility. And I love that I get to show them this part of our culture that really is intrinsic to who they are, but from this opposite culture, from this opposite language that is not there first. So being able to kind of reintroduce them to generate ideas about who they are through who they are and what I know about our culture. Language is very central to our understanding of self. So being able to relay that is very important.
Because you talk a lot about language, and, a lot of the kids' first language isn't English. So when you are translating and you're trying to make sure that you're conveying the messages the same way that they're written in their native language, what's so important for you to translate? What's the most important? Is it feeling? Is it the thought? Is it the history? Is it all of it?
I think for me, it's imagination. Mm-hmm. Translating a lesson in the context of school can sometimes be burdened by formality. Mm-hmm. So for the students who I do translate the lessons for, I have to emphasize that in a world where you're creating your own state of being, the state of everything. It's an imaginative fantasy world. To be able to create a metaphor, because, there's just the context of formality in school. And for me, that's very important because poetry is already part of their culture, but in a very different context. It's at home. It's in the community. It's not so much at school.
So as you've grown and developed your own style, what have your students taught you about how you approach poetry, or even about yourself, your patience, your ability to understand?
Working with younger students keeps that open-endedness alive for me. It's a great reminder. I learn alongside them in my lessons to be able to generate poetry through associative thinking, rethinking language again. It's practice for me, genuinely. I don't write often, especially recently, but in teaching and in creating alongside them, I feel like I'm developing my own canon, my own book of poetry through them.
Yeah. And why haven't you written in a while?
Life.
Yeah, life. So when we think about just this moment right now, the Middle East has been thrown into complete chaos with war in Iran and ongoing conflict in Gaza. So many of our neighbors in and around Metro Detroit have to hear and learn about what's happening in their home countries, learning about families. Do you ever find yourself leaning on poetry in moments like this?
Yes. Poetry in times of grief is a salve. If you can't express what that complicated feeling is, that disturbed spirit in you witnessing all of this, poetry and its language, especially from the people who emerge from these areas, it's so important. It helps not to heal. I'm not sure that anything can heal this, but solidarity in spirit and in feeling, reading and introducing these texts to students is very important. If I don't know how to talk about it exactly, this poet, this writer might.
How do you see poetry contributing to the visibility and understanding? Because once again, we talk about Arab Americans in this umbrella blanket way, but how do you see contributing to visibility in some way, shape, or form, whether if it's minor or large? How do you see poetry contributing to that?
For me, emphasizing visibility comes with a tag question: for who?
Oh, exactly.
For who? If I'm not visible already with all of this happening, then there's no need for me to emphasize that to you. I think going back to the rudimentary, things as simple as treating people the way you want to be treated, things that children intuit very easily, adults sometimes have a hard time with. So I don't emphasize visibility in that way. Celebration, acknowledgement of the little details of our culture, especially for the Arab students, that's my means to it. But I won't actively emphasize visibility, especially toward those who don't see me as is.
And if we could sit there for literally 30 seconds or so, when we talk about just this moment of, I don't have to fight for visibility because I'm here and I'm present and I'm alive, and I don't need anyone else to tell me that I'm not visible because I know I am. How much does it take? How much strength does it take to live that way, to say that? Especially in the face of folks who are already telling you, I don't care.
My hope is that these students, these kids understand that it's de facto, by default, you are here. And simply to remind them that that's the case, to not forget it, to not be faded into that narrative, because we are here and we've been here.
Mic drop. Wafaa Mustafa is an Iraqi poet, a teaching artist with Inside Out Literary Arts, and she is also a teaching artist with the Arab American Museum. I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the Metro, and I look forward to one day sitting down with you again and furthering our conversation.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Stay right there. This is the Metro. We'll be right back.